Martin, thanks very much for joining me today.
Good to see you, Tom.
So back in 2015 or 2016, Freshlogic undertook a set of levy-funded projects to quantify the size of the vegetable snacking market and identify opportunities to create more vegetable snacking options. Now, full disclosure, I was involved in those projects when I worked with you here at Freshlogic, and I remember at the time that the research found that consumers said they wanted vegetable snacks, but catering to that demand was often challenging. Looking back at the original research, what were the major findings of those projects?
That's a good summary. All consumers are saying we would like more nutritious snacks. Eventually it ends up as a trade-off with convenience and where they can source the product they want when they're hungry. And the challenges of a perishable product, trying to manage that through the supply chain, make it hard for vegetables, more snacking, particularly if that product involves a level of preparation. So we sized the whole snacking market. It was about 10% of total food and grocery, and that included everything, and then stepped that right back down to specifically what some of the vegetables were achieving. Again, we're finding that the convenience of delivery and the product form were overarching sort of positive considerations. It invited looking at vending to try and get that fresh, nutritious snacking offer closer to where the need might be, but more difficult. People seem to have a lot more propensity to buy a packet of chips rather than a sliced carrot in that sort of environment, let alone how to get it there and service it. And I think we found that the sweet spot was a whole vegetable product that stayed whole and was able to travel through the supply chain in that form. And at that stage, it was pretty clear that a small snacking tomato was successful in that sense, and it's sort of the optimum product for.
And in the years since that research, what's changed with the Australian vegetable snacking market?
I think we've seen the successes replicated with more products. Tomatoes were definitely right up there. I think cucumbers have levered off the learnings and gotten there a lot quicker. That's been a successful product. Those products in that form, that whole form that are able to travel through, going well. We've also seen the smaller households warm to the smaller size product. So whilst in the supply chain we talk of the snacking category, not all of those products are consumed as snack. Many of them are actually really convenient product forms for smaller or busy households. So that meeting that demand has put some demand and volume weight around what we probably loosely call snacking product form.
So bringing new products to market, over the years we've only seen a few that have really been successful, like the snacking cucumbers. What are the big challenges getting a vegetable snacking product on the retail shelf to begin with, and second, to convince consumers to buy it?
They both arrive at the same time, and you've got a perishable product, so the disciplines around performance are absolute. If you take a product to a retailer and between yourself and the retailer, you're able to convince them that there's an opportunity, you've probably got a month. And if it doesn't perform in that month, you're out. Your performance needs to be better than the lowest performing product or like product around. You've probably got to see another product taken off the shelf to put yours on. There isn't an infinite amount of shelf space out there. And what you've got is expansion and higher demand for fresh, chilled areas. So anything in a vegetable form that might be cut or trimmed that needs refrigeration is now under more pressure, particularly with the expansion of the likes of berries. So it's harder. Just the sheer performance of the product. Think of fruit vegetables as being a perfect research situation. There's no one behind the counter. There's no one other than the consumer assessing the value and selecting the product. So if they look at a range of tomatoes, which include 18 to 20 different products, and they go in there and they select this one or that one, and that product sells at a level that is beyond its deterioration or markdown on the shelf, then it's successful. If it doesn't, it'll be taken out of the range.
What about the logistics of fresh cut snacking products?
Challenging, particularly when you go away from the whole product form, and that's why those products have succeeded very well. They are more robust. They travel through the supply chain. And I think from our interactions with the leading breeders, it's that robustness and shelf life and maintenance of eating quality that are really valuable attributes. We don't ever really want to be breeding a vegetable for a long shelf life. But what we want to know is that it's not deteriorating within the normal convenience cycle. And let's be realistic, people are shopping 2 to 3 times a week, so they're not buying once a fortnight for this sort of stuff.
In many cases, these products are packaged, and consumers have a strong preference for things that aren't packaged these days.
They do. And nobody wants packaging until you look what's in their bag and you find that there is packaging. It's convenient. It's also a very efficient way of managing that product through the supply chain with the various barcoding options and the increase in the amount of self-serve checkouts, the comfort, the overarching comfort from consumers. I like to be able to shop quickly. If it's a barcode, it's easy. If it's a lookup item, it's more complicated. They welcome that.
And it makes it portable, which is important in snacking.
Yes, it does. And those portion sizes can get down. And typically where those portion sizes have been reduced, incremental value has been captured in the category. So that's been probably the prime catalyst for the snacking vegetable products generating more value.
Looking through the COVID pandemic, has that had much of an impact on consumer behaviour around veg snacks?
A little bit. When COVID came along, there was less shopping trips going on. There was less, so there was fewer trips, higher volume. With fewer trips, there'll be less impulse sales, and there was more food purchased, more food prepared at home. Lunches weren't at work; they were at home. So that took the demand off for some of the snacking products. As soon as it came back, we saw it lift and carry on. And as soon as the restaurants opened, we swung back into that almost in a get even mode. Don't lock me up anymore. I'm going to go out.
So consumer behaviours more or less sprung back 100%.
Yeah, plus some, particularly on the eating out. I mean, that's a lifestyle trend now, and that flows on to frame the future for this sort of stuff, because we read Australian households now are spending 39% of their food dollar on food consumed out of home. Now that's pretty substantial. That's grown by 50% as a proportion of their spend. That's just food over some 15, 20 years. It's a big increment, and that's not a whim. And that's had the pressure of cost of living, adverse sort of impacts the last 18 months, but it's still held up.
Mm-hmm. And looking at veg snacking, are there specific trends that we should be watching out for in the next couple of years?
You know, most of the products that we've succeeded with here have, we've seen some successes with them overseas. And so we can look to where those things, I think most of what's working out of Australia has had an opportunity to work in this marketplace. I think the grazing tendency, which underlies it all, just continues. I think that schools and the influence that they have will strengthen the fresh component and will put pressure on the packaging component because they want to see all those things and the children. So I think that the younger ones at school now are going to evolve into a different consumer, which will probably warm to these sorts of things. But the practical, pragmatic sides of cutting and trimming and moving and getting it where you want to be, they're the overarching considerations. And we shop 2 to 3 times a week, and a very high proportion of our households are now only one person, it's over 20%. And so they don't want to buy big quantities. So they welcome smaller packs of tomatoes and cucumbers because they don't want to put half a tomato back in the fridge.
Martin, thanks very much for walking us through that.
Thank you. Good to see you, Tom. Thank you.